Alright, we should be live. In this hopefully short little video, I'm going to show off my settlements at Oberland Station and Sanctuary Hills. So, starting with Oberland Station, I have the Wasteland Workshop DLC installed, as you all know from my last few videos. Normally, when I build settlements, I've been settling on a 3x5 design. And I've grown more and more fond of the concrete platforms that you can use and stack to negate uneven terrain. And so this is essentially, with Wasteland Workshop, going to be my new model settlement design. This one is a bit larger than the typical 3x5. This is a 4x6 settlement. And let's go look at what I did. Well, first things first, Oberland Station has no sources of standing water, so all your water has to come from pumps. In this case, the Wasteland Workshop's 10 water-producing pumps that require 4 electricity each. Put 3 of them up, and you have enough water for any settlement. And of course, you have to put a little bathtub to keep your Brahmin from getting into trouble. And neon lights, which are wonderful for a little flavor. So that's basically the water requirements for the entire settlement. This is the power. The Wasteland Workshop has a lovely new fusion generator, shamelessly assembled out of pre-existing game assets and turned into something useful for your settlement. And each one provides 100 power, which is more than any settlement should really need. Unless you go crazy with light boxes and whatnot, but we're not doing that here. Another standard feature of all my settlements where I try to do a centralized structure like this is to have a balcony around the first and second levels, which is surrounded with turrets. If all of my shops and beds and food are in the same location, then surrounding said location with defenses really kind of mitigates the need for any sort of overly elaborate and complicated defensive scheme or walls or anything of the sort. So this should work just fine. One thing I did that in hindsight is probably kind of stupid for this settlement type. I used all high-end turrets that require electricity instead of just the heavy machine gun turret, and they're more powerful, but the idea that enemy attackers could just damage my generator, which is kind of stupidly out in the open. If they did that, it would render all my defenses moot, so probably not the best design. If I were to do it again, I would say just use heavy machine gun turrets. They're plenty powerful and give you enough defense to get by with. And as a little vanity that some of my projects have when the terrain allows, this one has a basement where I store my personal stuff. This isn't my main settlement, so I don't have like storage or anything here, but I do have some crafting stations, and this is a neat little basement, my own little personal hole in the settlement. And I love these new doors. Hooray! Kind of useless, but I still like it. Alright, let's go check out the inside. On the first level of most of my typical settlements, I will have the stores. You can fit the stores inside, but it's kind of tricky because of the signs. They go above the floor, so you have to spend some effort positioning them so the sign goes in between two ceiling floor panels, whatever you want it to be. And I've made sure to do that here so they all fit in a nice line. I'm thinking 4x6 is definitely a fine size with which to build settlements, because you can fit all your stores in a row and give them room to get in and out, and it's a neat little storefront there. The second level includes all the necessities for my settlers, including beds. 2 rows of beds on a 4x6, if positioned astutely, will get you about 26, 27 beds. I guess I wasn't all that gifted here because I've put some more on one side than on the other, otherwise I'd have an even number, but we're not going to nitpick too much. And just when placing beds, I like to make sure there's just enough space to get between them. I'm not sure if gameplay-wise that actually even matters. I doubt it does, but aesthetically speaking, I like to have enough space to get in between all the beds. And then there are, of course, needs to be scav stations and settlements. So your lazy settlers will go collect you loot while you're not here. This settlement can technically fit in 8 of them, and it would probably be more worthwhile to do so instead of having so much food. But I just went with 6 and put them on either side. There's, again, plenty of room for 8. And there are the stupid signs from the store sticking up above the floor, which is kind of annoying, but the only other options are having them outdoors, perhaps, or building a 2-story area for them, and honestly, I just don't care. I can live with some signs coming through my floor. My girlfriend cannot, but you know what? We don't all have to build settlements the same way, right? And up on the roof, we have the ever-useful recruitment radio beacon, although I don't think anybody else is coming to this settlement, because I have 19 people here. You can get more, but you usually top out around 18, 19. And then with the garden planters, I've just moved all of my food production from the ground with its plants that you can't get rid of, and rocks and fallen trees and uneven terrain and other crap that gets in the way and makes it look annoying. Planting these planters guarantees you a flat surface. You can put in as much food as you can fit in a fairly neat and orderly fashion. And this is what I've come up with. Corn and carrots, or sorry, potatoes and carrots can each fit 9 to a rack. Corn can fit into 5, and if you're careful with the razor grain, you can get 4 in there. And honestly, you don't really need this kind of food. A more terrain-friendly, space-neutral option would be to just plant mutt fruit everywhere, which is what I do in some of the more limited settlements. But you know what? These planters, they just look so nice, and I'm so sick of planting mutt fruit everywhere that I just decided, screw it. I'll go with diversity and have all kinds of different plants, and it looks nice, and they occasionally throw a bit of it into your workshop so you can take some home with you. And, yeah, that is my Oberland settlement. Passive-aggressive mockery of my own settlers. Lights I tend to just put at in the middle of every 4 squares, so I haven't found any better source of lighting I like than the typical light bulb on a chain. Looks kind of low rent, but hey, this is post-nuclear fallout, so at least they have electricity, right? There are some wall lights that aren't terrible when I don't want things hanging around, like in here, but mostly these are the only 2 lights I use, unless I want to put up some spotlights, but usually I don't mess with spotlights too much because right now they're kind of glitchy. They will turn off and stop working after you leave a settlement, and then you have to cut the power to them or reposition them, and until Bethesda figures out what the hell it's doing in regards to keeping those things working, I'm not going to really use them too much. Except for effect at my arena. I'll use them there. And that is my all-in-one, one-building settlement design that should have everything you need. It might not be the most creative and fun of settlements, but it's got all the beds, food, water, electricity, and defense a single settlement needs in one area. And if you really get creative with these concrete structures, you can build them pretty much anywhere. Just depends how you're willing to stack. So this is the design I will probably use for most of my settlements in Far Harbor, if I can get away with it, because I really liked how this turned out. It's nice and compact. We'll just have to see what kind of settlements that Bethesda wants to give us. Alright, so I'm going to rest for a little bit, and then I'm going to transition to Sanctuary Hills which is not a very contained settlement. It's a different building philosophy there. One, it was the first settlement that I built, like most people will probably, that'll be their first one as well. And they just give you so much space that I didn't want to centralize everything. I wanted to kind of customize it and play around, so it's usually where my settlement designs are born, and then they're exported and refined to other settlements. So let's go to Sanctuary. And yes, if I haven't made it clear and you can't tell already, I love building settlements in this game. I don't know why. I just find it fun. On the plus side, though, it does get you a hell of a lot of experience. So if you're wondering how I'm level 123, building lots of things in settlements is one way, and, well, writing a guide where you have to do all the quests and go to every area, that'll do it too. Alright, so this is my Sanctuary Hills settlement. Close your eyes, pretend you don't see anything. We'll go through the place from the entrance and stop looking. You better not be looking. Better be looking away. I'll tell you when you can look. Okay. Now you can look. So, this is a bridge entrance to Sanctuary. The whole reason that this monstrosity of a structure exists is because my girlfriend chastised me for essentially only using like half the space of Sanctuary, which more accurately was probably only a quarter. And she pointed out how much better her design was because she used the entire housed-in area. So I naturally had to expand so she would stop taunting me, and I built this junk fence. And the most difficult part about this, first it started out as a simple bridge structure. The bridge is actually the support for all of this. At least it was, and then I deleted most of the bridge elements. There used to be bridges that ran from here to the other platform across here. And the good thing about them is they will snap onto each other, and you can essentially form straight lines and then build small little structures on top of them. Ah, there's one of the bridge areas that still made it. Yay, bridges! And you essentially use them as guidelines, or you can... I'll show you another settlement. I'll show you Warwick next. And it has some bridge walls. And the nice thing about these, like I said, you can put little platforms on them and put turrets on them, and they make a nice, airy little wall. It's not defensive, as in it'll stop things from shooting through them, unless you want to put walls on the outside of them, which... let's get to that now. The most annoying part of this, as far as placement goes, was getting all the little junk sections of wall, which I don't really recommend. They look kind of nice in a Mad Max kind of futuristic dystopia sort of way. Because, I mean, you know, junk fortifications. That's what all the raiders have, and they're popular, right? But they all have large stands and supports, and they don't snap together. They've got little tires sticking out at weird angles. So you really, really have to screw around with them a lot to get them to fit together in any semblance of an orderly, cohesive fashion. It's a limitation I noticed Bethesda didn't really have. Probably because they can just allow their own game elements to clip with each other. Cheaters that they are. So this is just a little bridge that I embellished and embellished and embellished and embellished, and now it's got lights, it's got little balcony corners that serve as a lookout, and then I put watch posts over here just so I could set some of my stupid robots to guard the gates, which you can see Jezebel is doing quite admirably. And, of course, turrets on top, because I wouldn't trust an NPC, even a robot with dueling Gatling laser arms, to guard anything. And like any good settlement worth its time. Yay, a gate! Yay, okay, you can go on, Brahmin. Uh-oh.
What? This place just has farmers?
Okay, he just glitched back for a moment.
All they want are pipe pistols and stupid ammo.
So let's get into Sanctuary itself. This is a dead building. I mostly built it to serve as part of the defensive wall that surrounds the entirety of Sanctuary. There's a nice little building platform here, though, and I didn't want it to go to waste, so I just built a building that serves no purpose. But I'm sure Bethesda will add more crap via DLC, and I will be able to turn this building into something at some point. Even if I end up tearing the entire damn thing down because they add stuff and I want to play with the new building elements, I don't like this. Maybe I want a concrete building at the beginning of Sanctuary, who knows. It could happen. But for right now, it's just a placeholder building. The hedges serve as fine walls. All these buildings have been emptied out. I really wish that you could break down scrub and useless buildings like this. They serve no purpose. There's no reason why we can't break them down. But whatever, Bethesda. And my walls surrounding Sanctuary are pretty fundamental. They're just normal shack walls that run the length. The reason that I've just used shack walls is because they're unusually forgiving when it comes to clipping, and they have a lean profile, so you can usually fit them into places you can't fit other walls. And they snap with one another, so you can form somewhat contiguous walls. You just have to ignore the holes under them, which I could cover up by putting fences in front, but I'm not too concerned with cosmetics. This is a save I reloaded before completing the game with the 4 different factions. So if I was going to do that again, I would build essential late game stuff here. People who have beaten the game know what I'm talking about. If not, then I haven't spoiled anything, so you're fine. This used to be the original entrance to Sanctuary. This is where I cut things off for the sake of simplicity, and because everything I needed and wanted fit in behind here, I've cut down the defenses a bit, and now I have mostly just left it as kind of a nostalgic reminder of how things used to be. And, you know, it's nice. I can pretend it's a second line of defense, although nothing ever gets here. Enemies tend not to spawn inside the walled-off area of Sanctuary.
What?
Little merchant stall that the merchants are inept at using. At least they stand near it. This little house here where the workshop is where I used to have all my beds. You can tell that this used to be the living area because this is where Mama Murphy is still being held captive. But now it's just an empty house, and even though these pre-existing structures do count as indoors and don't get rained on, unlike the actual structures that Bethesda allows you to build, good job Bethesda, I prefer to use my structures because they're more centralized. Now, believe it or not, this did start out as a 3x5. This is where I originated the design. And then, since this is my primary stronghold,
I should have done more.
I just kept adding in different directions until it turned out to be a multi-layered, towered, L-shaped monstrosity that you see before you. And, of course, here are all my crops. I like the little garden plot back here, so I haven't decided to use gardening squares to grow everything yet. I just don't see the need. There's just not a lot of clutter in Sanctuary, so you can grow pretty much everything you want without having to do that. My girlfriend disagrees. She went and covered this whole back area with concrete platforms and then put planters on top of them so she could have a straight, flat section which was unimpeded with weeds. Whatever. Sort of game, right? I would consider doing that, but I would have to essentially cover the whole area from this wall up with platforms, and I would want them to all line up, which could feasibly be done. But I don't want to have to tear down this whole wall again, so this is fine. Oh, where's my dog? Whatever, we'll get to him later if I see him. So let's get into the main structure.
But it's something.
The bottom floor of which barely resembles the 3x5. Oh, there's my junkyard dog. Junkyard dogs are neat. Lure them in with cages, they provide you defense, make everyone a little happier. Even though Sanctuary won't stay above 80 for some reason. They're neat. My girlfriend is going nuts. She's got like 5 cats and 4 junkyard dogs in Sanctuary. I personally don't think they're worth that much effort. It's nice to have one or two for flavor, and they're so cute. Yes, you will go in that doghouse. Yes, you're the owner of that doghouse. But, you know, it's nice to have one for flavor, a little for defense. And I built a decontamination arc under my main door, so even if I didn't have rad regeneration from solar powered, I would be perfectly fine just returning home and going through my always active decontamination arc. These settlers, they have it so good and they don't even know it. Anyways, inside, the first structure is basically our first floor is basically the settlers area. Has all their beds, a lot of their scav stations. If you're wondering why aren't the merchants here, like I said, this was my first settlement, and I didn't get local leader until really late in the game, and I refused to build level 1 shops. So my shops weren't built until later, so I didn't end up putting them in the bottom floor of this settlement. They have their own building, which we'll get to. Second floor is entirely mine. Mine. This is where all my crafting crap is. Just recently I added these doors, which I can lock from the inside like some reclusive hermit, even though everyone can just come up and down the stairs. That's not the point. They used to just be open panels of wall, which worked fine, because you might need to leave the settlement by different directions, so you just want to be able to run out instead of having to go downstairs. I haven't really messed around with too much flavor, so don't expect dancing lights all over everything and any of that. I don't know. I want it to be functional, not necessarily decorated like other places. So my chamber here is kind of boring, kind of unadorned. This is where I keep all my weapons, all my armor, all my drugs, and these are all my legendary weapons that I've accumulated over, I don't want to count how many hours of game time. And this is all my legendary armor. Yay! Oh, it also includes power armor. And a little safe beneath my bed are what I essentially consider my good guns that I'm not using, except for some of these. These are weapons that I'm giving to my provisioners. That's right. That's why they're there. These are either legendary weapons that I used a lot, or yeah, mostly that. I'm just not using them at the moment. So the third floor of this monstrosity is fairly empty. It includes only my robot workstation and my generator for the entire settlement. And because these generators have their little conduit sticking up above them, it actually goes through the roof of the next area, and you can connect things to it without having to run too much crap inside, even though I ended up doing that anyways. My iBot station, and again, this area is fairly empty still, so if they add more stuff I want in an expansion, and it doesn't take up too much space, I can do it here. Note that the robot workshop takes a 2-story room all to itself. And I used to have little strobe lights on the roof that would flash and make it look all electrically and technological and crap, but again, they will stop being unsynchronized when you reload, and then you just have one flashing light. So if I can't have them flashing on a different timer, I don't want them. High-tech lights, because, you got to make it look high-tech. Although if I really wanted it to look high-tech, I probably would have used some different walls, right? Maybe I'll get around to replacing this with concrete or something. And balconies, of course. There are 2 reasons I use balconies. One, because I'm too lazy to use upper floor shacks for some of my upper levels. So if you don't have these balconies, there's a fairly obnoxious gap around the side of my building. This kind of just covers that up to an extent. See? No ugly hole. Ew, ugly hole. That's just creative there. And another purpose these serve when they're not holding defenses is I run electricity around the outside. And this should allow everything inside to be lit up, provided it's not too large. About a 3x3 area can be lit up with external power conduits and lines. So that's typically what I do. And back to the roof. Again, there's not much to see here except my iBot pod, which I've used once, I think. And this tower is just kind of for vanity. I have it lit up, and I like to pretend I'm the lord of my entire domain. I can see everything, so... My little sanctuary sniper's nest.
There's so much ground to cover in the Commonwealth.
Unfortunately, they won't allow me to build little panels here to close this off, but whatever. I'll live.
For the odd noises I'm currently emitting.
And as you all might have seen earlier, this is my power armor shack, where I keep a modest selection of suits of power armor, including a couple of incomplete X01s. T60, where's my T6? T60 with, I don't know where I put it. I had a T60 with some of the Tesla armor. Are you it? I don't think you are. No. Ah, this is the T60 with Tesla armor. Oh, okay. Brotherhood armor, of course. T45, why not? And everyone's favorite X01. I rarely ever use power armor, though. With ballistic weave, I just don't think it's worth it. But when I do, this is my fully upgraded suit of X01 armor that I actually use. Unless you're going into the glowing sea, though, I don't really see a point. Where is that stored at? I have a whole crap ton of fusion cells somewhere. No, not in there. Where are you, fusion cells? Where did I stick you? There you are. Fusion core, sorry. So if I ever do want to use power armor extensively, I think I have the resources to do so. But, again, except for the glowing sea, I've really not found power armor necessary. And let's finish off this settlement by checking out my little merchant stall. Here we go. This is where all my merchants live and do business. Including, of course, everyone's favorite Vault-Tec rep.
I'm feeling swell.
Only problem with him is he insists on saying like 6 lines of dialogue before he actually sells you anything. So he's kind of annoying as a general store merchant, but come on. We kind of owed him a job, didn't we? He's been through a lot, poor guy. And another useless little area is just my picnic area for my settlers. This is just a nice little spot I've set up. Tents, campfire chairs. Hooray! And, of course, this is another example of the bridge wall, which I talked about earlier. Pretty much exactly what I had going on out front before I decided to put junk in front of it. It's a bridge wall. You put little platforms on top, put turrets on those, and if you don't want things shooting through them, you just put normal walls on the outside. Easy peasy. Simple wall building. And since enemies like to spawn out over here, it's a pretty well-suited area for some turrets. And that is my sanctuary. So I said I'd show you guys Warwick too, which is not quite as built up as the other places, but we'll go look at it anyways. And if you want me to show off any others, just leave a comment in the chat room, and I'll go there. I've got all my settlements built up more or less. They're all functional, even if they're all not quite as well designed. Most of them, like I said, are variations on the 3x5 all-in-one building. Loading, loading, everyone loves it. Alright, Warwick. Another example of the bridge wall. I built a more conventional wall on the side of Warwick and have all my water pooled up here. And yeah, it's just a nice little wall. Nothing really attacks from over here, so it doesn't need defense. And then this is my 3x5. One of my actual 3x5s, I think. Yep, exactly 3x5. With all its merchant stalls in place, beds on the second floor, and food on the top floor, surrounded, well, it used to be surrounded completely by turrets, but enemies don't really spawn inside Warwick, so I've just put a few turrets just in case things get out of reach.
Thanks for your help, friend.
And old school crops being grown on the ground. Everyone has to love the good old 3x5. Alright. And since I didn't get any requests, I will say that is good enough. You guys now see how I go about building my settlements, more or less. So if you want to use the old 3x5, it seems to work out pretty well. One other suggestion I'd make. Build multiple entrances to your settlement if you have them being all in one. Your settlers are assholes. They will stand in the doorway or on the stairs. It's another reason why the 3x5 is kind of obsolete. If you build it just a little bigger, you can have many, many entrances without opening the place up to the point where it gets where it conflicts with the things you want to put inside it. And it allows you to have multiple staircases, again, without cluttering things up too much, because your settlers will get in your way. So yeah. And no, you can't just frag them because they all go hostile, and then you have to rebuild the whole settlement because they're stupid and wouldn't get out of your way, and you rage killed them, which is entirely their fault, and they know it. Alright, but I babbled on long enough. Hope you enjoyed seeing my settlement designs. If anyone wants to see anything else, you know where to contact me. That'll be all for this time.